vibrant provincial capital inside of the Pyrenees and first and foremost a Catalonian city, Lleida has for thousands of years witnessed many of the major milestone events which have marked the country's history. Here at the newly built Lleida Alguera airport north of the city, however, a different type of history is about to be made as a sport with a long tradition makes a groundbreaking return to Europe. Organiser Jeff Zaltman sets the scene.
Well, we're here in Lleida, in Catalonia, Spain, at the Lleida Alguera airport, which is a great facility. It's a brand new airport, just a few years old, and they're really looking to grow. So as one of those steps in the effort, they've invited us to come here and race. And so what the spectators are going to see today is an air race. This is actually called a Formula One class of airplane, and we've got 8 airplanes racing together at the same time around a tight circuit, which is only 2 kilometers end to end, 10 meters above the ground at over 400, 450 even kilometers per hour. First one across the line wins.
So a simple concept and not an entirely new one, it has to be said. Since the earliest days of air shows, the spectacle of racing around a course was the one which fired the crowd's imagination. And in the 1940s, a racing class, Formula One, was established. So nearly 70 years of evolution has brought Formula One to a pinnacle.
This is the world's oldest class of air racers, the Formula One, which is a formula of size, weight, and engine description, and so on. In Reno, we've been racing since 1965 or 64. They used to have lots of races in Europe as well, so it's time to do it again. What's happening here is we have 3 different organizations. We have the British, the French, and the American Formula One associations coming together and doing an international event. So this is a relatively new thing for all involved, and very exciting.
In France especially, and in Europe, but especially in France, it's often the case that you're racing alone. There just aren't that many pilots around. But now here, with the Americans coming, we need to give this event a lot of publicity because it will be a great spectacle. And hopefully that'll help rejuvenate the sport in France and across Europe. And then maybe we'll get more pilots from Spain, Germany, England and Italy involved in air racing. So history in the making, but what of the machinery involved? As the pilots themselves explain, the hardware is very much purpose-built.
This is a Casset. A Casset is one of the most wonderful aircrafts I've ever flown in my life. It's right there at the top 10. A lot of fun, very agile, very high performance, very, very fast. It's a delightful aircraft in every regard. You truly strap it on. It's so tiny. The engine has to be a 200 cubic inch Continental, which is rated at 100 horsepower. It's the same engine that would power a Cessna 150, which cruises at 90 or 100 miles an hour. We take that same engine, plug it into a very small and light airframe, and we get speeds over 250 miles an hour.
These little airplanes are very swift to fly. It really is a joy just to fly them. It's like driving a sport motorcycle. It's fun. Flying these are the sport motorcycles of airplane. Nimble, fun to fly.
Some of the best pilots in the world have started right here. So these formulas absolutely have the best pilots for racing in the world because it's a stick and rudder airplane. It's not a very complicated motor management airplane. You just simply have to be a good pilot to be able to be successful in this sport.
It's not a rich man's sport, it's not a poor man's sport, it's like a sport that everyone can have fun and be competitive at. No matter if you're wealthy or not. To do more, just fiberglass, foam, good ideas, that is worth nothing. It's just time, a little bit of time, and good judgment, and getting surrounded by the guys who know, the guys have been there before, who will tell you if it's safe.
And if there's an undisputed king of painstaking development by trial and error, it's the fastest of the American visitors, Jay Jones.
All we can do, different than a stock motor, we go inside and polish things. Like on all the rods and anything that moves, if it's rough and texture on the outside, we polish that off because it is moving inside oil and air inside the case. We with all this cleaning and all this perfectly balancing that we do, we bring it up to 4,100 RPMs, and which get 150 to 185 horses out of it. And by being so light and so clean, no parasitic drag, that's how the racers become faster, more efficient.
So efficiency, the key word, but speed, the ultimate goal, especially now as the time came to prove just who could establish themselves as king of the Catalonian skies. Qualifying would determine grid order for the two feature races and give the Spanish crowd their first taste of Formula One air racing and us a chance to run through the 11 pilots and their planes. Patrick Gajan started to fly gliders when he was just 16, but only took up Formula One racing in 2013 with his plane Sicole, a CP80 in Warbird colours. Best recorded average 242 kilometres an hour over the course. Trevor Jarvis had flown his Taylor JT2 Titch all the way from the UK to celebrate the completion of its 36-year build. 247 kilometres an hour was his best lap average. A big step up now to 273 kilometres an hour. Bernard Marici with his home-built MP205 Bussard, which he's raced since 2003. Bernard, a mechanic for Airbus Industries. Another Frenchman, another Bussard. Stanislas Dameron works as a design engineer for Dassault Aviation. He's been a pilot since 2007 and clocked 50 hours in this plane, 285 kilometres an hour. All the way from Scotland, Des Hart is an engineer in the oil industry and here to experience racing for the very first time. The plane, a race classic Casset 111N, and his best qualifying performance, 294 kilometres an hour. Guy Charot has raced his Formula One racer, a Casset 111M, in several French air shows and pylon races, and that experience shows through with a best average of 297 kilometres an hour. 318 kph. Vincent Martinez is an equally experienced aerobatic pilot and won the French Formula One Championship in '99 and 2000. He helped to build the Casset he races and started Formula One pylon racing in '98. 353 kilometres an hour, and it's a step up to Sweden's Tom Richard, a long-time resident of the USA where he's built up extensive race experience. The plane, another of the Cassets. Faster still, 377 kilometres an hour. Steve Temple works with the US military in Germany and is a former Rookie of the Year at the Reno Air Races and placed third in the US National Championships. The plane, a highly developed GR7 Panther. Jay Jones from Colorado has over 17 years of experience in international Formula One racing. Jay is an aircraft design engineer and tirelessly develops the Casset, which here gave him a best average of 380 kilometres an hour in qualifying. But taking the US races by storm with a best average of 386 kilometres an hour, a spectacularly different and strictly home designed and built Arletty 2 of French pilot Christian Guille, a professor of mechanical engineering who started flying in 1987. So a combination of clever design and pilot experience leading the field through the early stages. So we ask, what is it that makes the perfect race pilot?
The purity is in the skill of the pilot, because it's absolutely telltale from half a second to half a second where you over-controlled or where you maybe controlled just perfectly.
You have to improve your skill all the time to stay in the front, and this challenge is a lot of fun. So small airplane fun and racing a great challenge.
Smooth. You have to be smooth, and what I would call lack of ham hands. So when I was a boy, if you're over-controlling an airplane, they would say you're flying with two big pieces of ham as opposed to your fingertips. So you try to avoid the ham hands.
In formation flying, everybody wants to be the leader. If somebody's in front of you, you don't get the feeling of speed. You're just seeing if you're closing in on that person or see where it's going to be, and it's just a balance. You know, the motion and trying to keep out of the prop wash and the prop wake. You know, we're all just trying to keep that smooth, comfortable balance and be able to pass it and get around the course the quickest.
Well, plenty of experience on hand then, but some rookies also on the grid here in Catalonia, benefiting, as they explain, from some fast company.
It's pretty exciting, you know. The first couple of days, you kind of think, what am I doing here? This is pretty terrifying. But the other guys on the course know what they're doing. You know when they're going to turn in. You're all turning in at the same point. You know, everyone's taking similar lines, so you learn to anticipate that and get a bit of confidence. Once I got clear of the couple of aircraft in front of me, it's really settling down and enjoying it. You know, it's great tearing around at these kind of speeds around the pylons. It doesn't feel particularly hairy once you're in the zone, as it were. You know, it's good fun.
I'd not raced before I came down here, and so they've been teaching us through the week, and they say they're pitching us with the hot aeroplanes and hot pilots. And they're all so helpful as well. They give you tips, you know, how to pass and you know, just how to look after the aeroplane and make sure it's flying fast. I'm going around the track, you know, a couple of seconds faster each time I go out, you know, by listening to the advice. How about trying this? Or that was good, keep doing that, and it works. So yeah, fantastic experience.
And so as the crowds here in Catalonia start to build for the culmination of a spectacular weekend's racing, we'll be back with highlights of both the silver and gold finals after the break. Join us then. Welcome back to Lleida, Catalonia, hosting a milestone event in European motorsport history as air racing makes a return to the continent. We've seen some stunning performances so far in the early stages, the two fastest planes making themselves very obvious. The distinctive and highly individual Arletty 2, a one-off French design from pilot Christian Guille. The plane the Americans call the White Monster. Jay Jones here in the yellow Cassoute, the quickest of the USA contingent, struggling to find the edge to beat the Frenchman. Although when the flag drops for the final, of course, all that could change. In the meantime, though, there's the business of our first feature race, the silver final. A lot of promise being shown by this man, Des Hart of Scotland, racing for the very first time in his Cassoute. Conditions looking absolutely perfect as they begin their taxi at the runway. And there's the course, 6 pylons in total, a 3-mile lap for the planes, the race starting on the ground in this Formula 1 category. The grid forming up on the runway with the fastest of the planes at the front, pole position being ahead and taking the preferred line into the first pylon. Time now to join our commentator, Chris Hartley.
The green flag drops, the silver final gets underway, and it's the yellow plane of Stanislas Dameron making the most of pole position. The red plane of Bernard Marici powers into second as the leaders take to the air. Trev Jarvis with work to do from the back of the grid. Dameron, meanwhile, is first around the top of the course, with Marici keeping in touch. The 3 lead planes pretty well matched in terms of performance. On board with the leader as he tries to get his bearings. On the right of the shot, you can see he's very tight to the inside of the course. The view from Des Hart's plane through the corner. Dameron way ahead, but he was so close to the inside of the course. I'm pretty sure the race officials will be looking to see if he cut through on the inside of the pylon. Just behind him, Des Hart is lining up a move for second place from high on the outside of the turn. Pretty much past the red plane of Marici now, as you can see from the cockpit, bearing down on the lead plane of Dameron, who's keeping tight to the ground. Another battle going on at the rear of the pack, though, as Trev Jarvis pushes down on the tail of Patrick Gajan. And now Des Hart is all over the back of the lead plane. Dameron pushing that yellow buzzard to the max now, trying to keep the Scotsman back. But Des has got the momentum out of the dive. And here's Trev Jarvis powering the tailor past the French pilot, looking round again and again to make sure the other plane doesn't drift wide. A quick wave just to say I'm here, and Jarvis moves up to 5th spot. While up at the front, it's reached the crucial point. Des Hart's Cassoute now taking the higher outside line on Dameron, covering more ground, of course, but he'll power down the straight in a dive to maximise the momentum. On board with the Scotsman, pushing down now, and there's the Frenchman keeping it low, hoping he's got the legs to fight off this attack, but you can just see how much he's been pulled in. Dameron's helmet cam twitching furiously as he looks over again and again, the French pilot knowing he's going to see Des Hart any second, and indeed there's the white Cassoute, number 11. Both of these pilots racing for the very first time, and what a show they're putting on for the crowds here in Catalonia. No sign of any rookie nerves as on board with Dameron, you can see Des Hart establishing himself now as the leader of this silver final. And there's a big move being made midway down the field. The red and white plane of Guy Chiraud hammering past Bernard Merici to take third. Merici left standing, which makes you think there may be a problem with the plane. As Trev Jarvis keeps up progress in the Taylor Titch in fifth, he's about to be lapped by the leader, Des Hart. The white cassette powers past on the outside, keeping a safe distance. And who knows what Guy Chiraud's found to get this sort of speed out of his plane. But whatever it is, definitely now working. He took third spot and he's bearing down on Stanislas Dameron in second place. Stan again keeping it low, hoping to hang on for just half a lap or so, because we're right in the dying moments of this race. Number 11, the blue and white cassette of Des Hart, enjoying clear air as he banks through the final turn. No one going to trouble him now as he levels the plane out and approaches the line, which extends out from the control tower. And there's the sign. He's crossed the finish line as our winner, Des Hart of Scotland, pulls up and away, the winner of the silver final.
Well, no shortage of drama there in the silver final. Unfortunately, Stanislas Dameron demoted to third place for cutting that pylon early in the race. But the honours very much belonging to winner Des Hart of Scotland. A proud family there to congratulate him.
Once I had the speed built up, it was just a case of flying smooth, reeling them in. It's pretty bumpy and turbulent today. Stan had a little problem on pylon 4 and 5, I think, coming around the back, so he went a bit wide, so that led me to pull him in even more. So, no, good race, nice and safe, everyone happy. So now we've got to go and run at the back of the gold.
Well, 8 planes in this, the gold final. Pole position on the inside, Christian Guille of France, and his incredibly quick, self-designed Arletty 2. Immediately behind him, Jay Jones from Colorado, possibly the most experienced racer. As now we hand over to commentator Chris Hartley.
Well, the race starts from the stationary positions on the grid, and as you can see, there's a definite advantage being shown by the 2 cassettes of Jay Jones and Tom Richard as they power past the French plane in pole. Sheer grunt doing the work here, so perhaps an indication that they've got the edge in terms of engine power. On board with Jay Jones then, as he banks that yellow plane, number 45 into the first of the turns. Tom Richard behind him in second place. But already you can see Christian Guille's taking the clever line on the inside, hoping to find a bit of a gap to push past the Swede. On board with Tom Richard, and there to his left you can see the Arletty's gone through already. Up front, Jones in the yellow number 45. On board with him, clear air ahead. But not for long by the looks of it. Christian Guille's made up a massive amount of ground down the back straight. Almost up to race speeds now, so this is when the aerodynamics start to really make a difference. And that's where everyone's saying the French plane has the big advantage. Guille going high and wide around the second turn, looking for the gap. Jay Jones is no rookie, though. He's got all the tricks there to keep the door closed, but as he said before the race, he really doesn't have much of an answer to the way this French plane goes. The Arletty 2 at full throttle now, pushing down the home straight for the first time. That beautiful sleek design, so different to all of the other planes here this weekend. 7 years since Christian Guille completed the home build, and he's got every last wrinkle well and truly ironed out. The French plane again taking the outside line. Jay Jones making sure there's no other choice available. We've seen that yellow cassette flying so low and tight around the pylons this weekend. But Christian Guille's shown the Americans exactly what the European racers are capable of. The White Monster, as the Americans call it, powers down now, hammering past Jay Jones. The American glances across to his right, where Christian Guille is making the move of the race. The French plane passes the leader on the outside and takes the front of this historic race. An absolutely incredible display of racing here from the Frenchman, who's powered his way from third right to the front in the space of just 2 laps. Jay Jones keeping the cassette at full throttle, still looking for that inside line, trying to push Christian Guille to the outside line, but it's a long shot for the American, really. On board with Tom Richard in third, a little bit lonely back there as he takes his cassette down the start-finish straight. A little piece of cord flapping around in front of the screen, an indicator of turbulence. Back up to the battle at the front of the race, and Jay Jones struggling now to keep in touch with Christian Guille. It'll be pure frustration for the American pilot because he's shown over the course of the last few days there's very little he can do to fight back. A graduate there from the silver final, Stan Dameron, keeping up with the fast boys as best he can, doing pretty well in 5th place. But here's the hero of the French contingent, the man they're looking to show the guys from the USA that the future of racing in Europe is an exciting prospect. Christian Guille laps for the first time Bernard Merici in the red plane, 384 kilometres an hour, the best average over the course for the lead plane in qualifying. Over 100 kilometres faster than Bernard, and you really can see the difference there. Vincent Martinez quite a bit faster than that, but he's not going to bother the lead pack. keeping himself out of trouble in fourth, but some way behind Tom Richard in third. The leader, Christian Gill, enjoying clear airspace once again. No challenge from behind, just the traffic up front to work around. There's an interesting battle on here, though. Stan Dameron coming under pressure from Des Hart, the two who moved up from the silver final. This a repeat of their tussle in that race. The Scot chasing the Frenchman for fifth place. Bernard Marichy bringing up the back of the field in the red plane, number 25, and Steve Temple in the Panther GR7 struggling to find the performance to keep up here, all the way back down in seventh, potentially a problem with that plane. Sweden's Tom Richard in third, lapping Bernard Marichy. Meanwhile, here is the battle for fifth. Once again, Des Hart of Scotland finds just enough from the blue and white cassette to push past Stan Dameron in the French Buzzard. Stan not letting the Scot have it all his own way, though. Keeping his head, keeping it tight around the turn, keeping out of the turbulence of the plane next to him. And while all that goes on, right behind them, we're on board with Tom Richard in third as he finds a clean line past that little tussle, safely clear of Stan, and now wide and away from Des Hart. While Steve Temple still struggles away with what should have been one of the lead planes. We go on board with him. He looks around to try and keep out of trouble. That engine not sounding that healthy. Only just managing to keep himself ahead of Bernard Marichy, right at the back of the field. As Jay Jones piles on the pressure behind Vincent Martinez, the American in second place, lapping the Frenchman, who's in fourth. Jay Jones on board there, the American pilot, the picture of cool. No stress, despite the frustration that he must be feeling. Because there's really nothing he can do now to catch this man, Christian Gill, the Frenchman way out in the lead and safe. But this is trouble for Steve Temple, the Panther losing more and more power. That engine really in bad shape now, maybe stopped altogether, and it's difficult to tell, but the pilot looking left and right now, trying to find the gap he needs to bring it down safely. All the other pilots will be aware of what's going on. They put the call out over the radio that Steve's in trouble. They'll keep out of his way to get the Americans safely down. Jay Jones passing Bernard Marichy for the second time now. As yes, Steve Temple's brought the Panther down safely, gliding down with what appears to be engine trouble. The white flag out now for the last lap. 7 planes still in the air, but there's one which really has been in a class all of its own from start to finish. More action on board with Tom Richard. Less than a lap to go now, but still time to reel in Vincent Martinez. The Swede lapping the Frenchman, who's been a good 30 kilometres an hour slower on average. Officials pushing Steve Temple clear of the line as Christian Gill pushes down the home straight. The checkered flag out for the finish of the race as the Frenchman pulls clear with that historic victory safely now in the bag.
So Christian Gill wins for France, Jay Jones second, Tom Richard third. A little last-minute drama right at the end. We asked Steve Temple what had been the problem.
Rolling out of the fourth pylon, I felt a little pop, and then rolling on to number 5, the engine stopped with a loud explosion. Didn't know what it was because all the switches were up and running. Probably a blown motor. You know, it was bad news for the airplane. Great news, me, I'm down. You know, the other guys heard me and saw me. So that's the drama.
Well, no dramas for the winner of the race, though. Christian Gill of France taking victory in his incredible plane, Arletty 2. I'm very happy with the way I raced, but it was really, really turbulent, and that made it very tiring. 12 minutes of flying in those conditions felt easily like you'd been in the plane for an hour. So conditions in these clear blue Catalonian skies not necessarily as easy as they looked. Everyone's safe and sound though as Des Hart of Scotland climbs onto the podium to claim victory in the silver final. But the man of the moment here in Lleida, quite clearly, Christian Gill of France, winner of the very first air race won in Europe.